All right. Hello, this is Wmpyr here with, hopefully, you will find this a very interesting and, more importantly, useful in your martial arts path, in your martial arts training. And this is the idea of going from two-dimensional thinking into three-dimensional thinking. So, why is this even important? Who cares? Who cares about, whatever the heck you're about to say, 2D versus 3D? Why it's important is because we're going to have a simple rule that if you are operating in two dimensions, in other words, that's how you think, that's the world you live in, right? Then you cannot understand the third dimension because it's beyond you. Okay, you can understand 2D and you can understand 1D. Anything you're equal and below you, you can understand. So if we're talking about 3D, three dimensions, a 3D person can understand 2D and 1D, but they cannot, also 3D, but they cannot understand 4D, for the fourth dimension, right? It's just beyond them. So in this case, we're going from 2D to 3D. Um, and when I say that, when we go to, we are able to use something that if your opponent is thinking in 2D and you're thinking in 3D, even if they try to imitate you, they cannot comprehend. They can't do what you're doing. So whether it's training or whether it's an actual performance, whether it's on the street or the ring or sport or whatever, or like I said, real life, they can't do what you're doing. So anytime they cannot do what you do, that gives you a substantial advantage, possibly. So that's why 2D and 3D, this whole thing, I feel that it's very worth it. It's very important. Okay, and and there might also be unlocking your full potential. Okay, because 2D may limit you and 3D will free you. Okay, so in that sense, it's also beneficial. But all right, let me explain. So what the heck am I really talking about? So anytime you're talking about style versus styles, you go, well, I think this style is better at this, or this style is better suited for me, or this style is more effective, or anytime you're talking about styles like that, two dimension. Okay. And same with techniques. So when you go, oh, I think this technique works better, or this technique is uh, high percentage than this other technique, or this technique is way more effective, way more powerful, or whatever. That's also 2D, two dimensional. And this is where I gotta let you guys understand is that when we're talking about 2D and 3D, it sounds like 3D is way better, so 2D is inferior. And you know what I want you to know is that 2D, 3D is not a choice; it's a progression. So you can't go, oh, okay, so Wmpyr says this is 2D, so I want to go 3D. He says 3D is better, so I want to do 3D. You can't just pick 3D over 2D. Okay, you can't just do that. You have to understand 2D in order to get to 3D. Okay, so 2D is important, is what I'm trying to say. It is necessary. It's just unfortunate that people get stuck there and they cannot go to 3D after that. They're permanently there, okay? Which will give other people advantages, so good for the other people, but bad for the people that are stuck there. So so I'm not saying that 2D is wrong. Okay, I'm not saying that it's wrong. That's very important to understand. But when you're thinking in those terms, you are limited in the two dimension. All right. So let me try to give more examples here. Another one, and this is more relevant to Filipino martial arts, is, for example, the reverse grip versus the standard grip. You're holding the knife in the conventional, standard grip, or to hold the knife in the reverse grip. ice pick grip. When you're going, which one's better? You're thinking in 2D, 2 dimensions, all right? The answer for Filipino martial arts is we use both. So that's 3D, 3-dimensional. Okay. Another one is fighting stance. Okay. So in Filipino martial arts, it is southpaw, essentially. Your strong side forward is what it is. So if you're right-handed, which most people are, your right hand, your right side is forward. This is FMA concept right here. That's what happens. The reality is we practice both. We practice both sides. Okay, that's the reality. So when we say right side forward, this is 2D. The thinking is 2-dimensional, right? So then you go, oh, you said 3D is better, so you guys do both, so I'm going to do both. You have to understand 2D first, because if you just go, okay, so I'm just going to train both. I'm ambidextrous, I could do both, and you get in a real life situation, they have a knife, you have a knife, and for some reason you got to fight it out, okay? And you go, well, I could do both, so I'm going to save my knife side over here, and I'm going to put this side to the front, and I'm going to set them up with a knife. They're just going to go to town on this arm. You gave them a target. So that's because you didn't understand 2D. So you can't just skip to 3D is what I'm saying, okay? So it's not about 2D is wrong. You have to understand 2D, okay? You have to study it. You have to understand it. And then from there, we want to go into 3D. So now that's a prime example of why you can't just jump to 3D. And it's not about, oh, 3D is better, so I want to do 3D. It doesn't work like that. It is a progression. It is a development, okay? So the next thing, maybe this will help with the understanding the 3D part, is, to me, defang the snake is a, you've all heard it if you've been interested in Filipino martial arts. Defang the snake. Remove the fangs of the snake, and then the snake is no longer harmful. It's no longer dangerous. So that would translate as, if the bad guy has a knife and they come in attacking you, you cut them right on the arm, and they can drop the knife. Now they can't use that arm anymore. So now you remove the threat. In other words, to put it even more simply, attack the attack, right? You're attacking the attack. So anyway, how is defang the snake very good for taking us from 2D to 3D? It opens the gate for that. How? How it does that is when you start thinking, is defang the snake, is it offense or is it defense? And you go, well, it's defensive, right? It is defensive. If I had to pick, it's more defensive because I'm countering and they're attacking me, so it is defensive. But you go, wait a minute, that can possibly end a freaking fight. In fact, I've done that empty hands. An empty hand match that I had, I used defang the snake and I ended one match that way. It was a TKO. The guy couldn't continue because I defanged the snake, right? That's very, very offensive that it can end a match, possibly, right? So which one is it? Offense or defense? Well, when you're thinking, you're trying to categorize it into one or the other, that is 2-dimensional. But for me, defang the snake is both. It's offense and defense. It's both offensive and defensive. So when you have two, now it creates a third, a triangle. So it's offensive, it's also defensive, and boom, the third one is, what am I doing here? Well, in this case, with defang the snake, the way that I use it is, this is survival. So I am trying to survive. So for the purpose of survival, are you just going to use offense or are you just going to use defense? Well, if you do that, you could see how that's limiting you. But if I could tell you, for the sake of survival, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I don't care if it's offense, defense, mixed, or whatever. I don't care. I'm doing anything that is necessary for the purpose of survival. That's a much more stronger, powerful answer, is it not? So that is three-dimensional thinking, you know. So I'm not thinking offense, defense. I'm thinking survival. That's 3D. Okay. So yeah, that is 2D versus 3D, and what I'm trying to tell you guys is I'm basically starting to move away from the idea of offense and defense. I'm not thinking like that. I'm less and less, you know. Now, for the beginners, when I teach, I teach it as like the force-to-force block using the defense bag. Use the force-to-force block to protect yourself against the knife attack. And for that, you know, it is defense, and then you're using the bag like a shield. So those are two words that I use, but those two words are very two-dimensional. It's not accurate at all, because in reality, I cannot categorize the force-to-force block because it is defang the snake essentially. I cannot categorize it as offense or defense. It's both. There's elements of both in there, and it's not a shield. If anything, size-wise, the bag is about this. That's a big knife, and the way that I'm using it, I'm using the angles of attack, because I don't train shield. I've never trained with a shield. I've never had an actual shield and they're attacking me with a spear and I'm blocking with. I've never done that. But I have done sword and knife. So it makes more sense, stick, sword, knife, you know, that I'm using the bag in the way that I know and not in the way that I don't know. So I don't know shield. Why would I use it as a shield? You know, all of a sudden I'm good at the shield. That makes no sense. So I'm using it, if anything, like a knife. Is that offense or defense? You know, it's not a shield. So 2D, I'm using 2D to explain it. 2D terminology, so hopefully you guys can understand better. But really, I want to get you guys to where you're thinking in 3D. So I get people trying to argue with me all the time and say, if you only block and if you only defend, then, you know, whatever. And it's like, it's really not what I'm doing here. You know, it might look like that, but I'm surviving. So whatever it takes to survive, you know. And then people can misunderstood that as, oh, so then you do attack too. It's like, once again, that's thinking back in 2D. Now I'm attacking. No, I'm surviving. The whole time, from beginning to end, I'm surviving. I do what's best for survival. I think it's good time to attack right now. I think it's a good time to defend. I'm not thinking that way. You know, like I said, it's 3D, not 2D. So I hope that makes sense, you know. Yeah, so when you start thinking about survival like that in 3D, you start seeing a bigger picture. So rather than, okay, when's the right time to attack and defend? Or, okay, so here I block, now I'm going to attack back, and now you're in a fight, and it's no longer self-defense. If you're thinking survival, you're trying to run away, you're trying to get them tired, you're de-escalating the situation, you are diffusing as much as possible, you're neutralizing, you know, you're talking to them, you're trying to discourage them, you're calling for help, you're looking for exit. These are all things that start coming into play. Those are the things that are going to help you survive and live. Whereas to the person that's thinking in offense and defense, they're too worried about this thing right here. And like I said, that's taking you into fighting. So anyway, yeah. I hope this makes sense. That's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.